Hi, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are in the country or where you are around the world. I wanted to do this quick little announcement with regard to discussions. So, first week, sort of, I try and give everybody credit for everything because you're just introducing yourself and it's just sort of like making sure that you are going to be active in the class. So everybody pretty much gets credit for everything in the first week. The second week might seem kind of harsh, but I just want on the second week I wanted to stress to you the importance of the instructions for discussion posts. Now, this week, if you notice, last week, I pinned um, a post there, and it talks about your task in the discussion to build upon the points that your colleague is making, whoever you're responding to. Your job in discussion is not to evaluate your colleague's post. It's not to make comments, you did a good job here. I like the way you integrated the textbook material into the topic and yada, yada, yada. And at the very bottom, you go, nice job on your post. Okay, that's not your job. Your task is not to evaluate your colleague's post. Can think about it this way. If we were all together in a live classroom sitting around a big table and I threw out a topic, for instance, Streptococcus aureus and UTIs, and I gave you 10 minutes to do some quick research. You can just do some quick online Google stuff, and then, and certainly use your textbook, and then everybody comes together and we go around the room, we go around the table, and Sally says, "This is what I found out about this," and yada yada yada, and then Steve says, "That's a good point, Sally, and to build on that, this and this and this and this," and we go around the room like that. Okay, that's the way discussion is supposed to work. So think of it as you are, even though I know everything is virtual and it's kind of have to use your imagination here, but it's the nature of the beast, right? But just think about um, us sitting around a table, and if you respond to Joe's post, you say, "Hey, Joe, nice job on your post. I would like to build on, or I can build on this point that you made, and or I can add to like that." We build the discussion, we build the information. You add to what your colleague has posted, or if something that your colleague says, mentions in their post, if it strikes your mind, then you do a little bit of research on that and you go, and then you add to that point. And then the next person comes along and adds to your point like that. That's the way discussion is supposed to work. Now, I realize that this being a 200 level course, have, some of you understand, you've done this before, but most students taking a 200 level undergraduate course are not familiar with the specifics of academic writing. And so that's one of the things that you want to learn while you take this class with me, to learn how to put together an academic treatise properly sourced, properly referenced, properly cited. Okay, that's one of the big things that you want to learn here, because as you move into your 400, your 300 and 400 level courses, you need to know the ins and outs of academic writing. And also, for some of you, you will be matriculating to graduate school, and everything in graduate school is academic, all of the writing, all of the research. And so you want to learn these basic skills, and then as we go through the term, build upon them. So again, as I said, some of you already have it, but most students taking a 200 level course, you've never been introduced to this. So this is one of the things that I want you to do. So in class resources, I have posted a PDF. It's called Jeffrey's Guidelines for Discussion Post. And if you read through, it's just like one page and maybe a quarter. I have an example of a very good post from a student, an example of a not so good post from a student. I have an example of a post from me, and all properly cited and referenced, so you can see how that works. Um, the guidelines for discussion here in this class are 100, at least 150 words. You can do more than that. But if you come in with 92 words, I can't give you full credit for that. So at least 150 words, because anything less than 150 you really can't make a point. If you look at the post that I have in the guidelines that I did, it's like 152 or 154 words. It's not much more over 150, and yet the information there is quite substantive. And I think I even made a note there. You see something to the effect of you can make a substantive post, and it really doesn't have to be like a dissertation. It doesn't have to be like 5,000 words, right? It can be just over 150. My rule of thumb is always, if you concentrate on writing a good post, a meaningful post, then the 150 words will take care of itself. And by the way, the 150 does not include references, okay? But if you just do, just concentrate it and do a thoughtful post, informative post, then, or response, or post, it works for both. Then the 150 words will take care of itself. You won't have to worry about counting these and us and uffs and its, right? So, okay, so that's that. So follow those guidelines, at least 150 words and at least one. You'll notice that with my 150 some word posts, I have like 3 or 4 different references. Usually it takes more, but not always. But at least one authoritative reference. Now authoritative reference is your textbook. Do not use Tortora. I know none of you have a copy of Tortora at home in your personal library. I have a copy here, but that's one of the things that I do. In other words, my point there is that if you have not gleaned from the actual reference, be it your textbook or you haven't read the research article, technically you're not supposed to use that as a reference. And I know some people have been doing this long enough. I know some students like to just copy and paste. If they're responding to someone, you just copy and paste their references, and you throw in a couple of citations, and you think you're good to go. That's not the way it's supposed to work. And later on in 300, 400 in graduate school, you're going to have to keep a journal, keep a reading journal where you have to prove that you got this piece of information from this source. Okay, you have to prove that, and you have to keep a journal, reading journal like that. So just be aware of that. I know the games that students play, like to copy and paste someone else's references and um, you know, whatever, however that works. But it doesn't do you any good at all if you do that. One of the things that I have found that if if you copy and paste someone else's references and they have um, not properly formatted their reference and you just copy and paste, then guess what? Your reference is not properly formatted either, which means that if they lose credit for the reference for formatting, then you lose credit for formatting. So you always want to check that out. Speaking of formatting, we use the APA, it's 7th edition at this point, the APA style guide for references and citations. So everything is based on APA is American Psychological Association, but you don't have to buy the book. You can Google, if you're not sure how to format a reference for a book, for instance, then you can Google how to reference a book in APA. Always put 7th edition because there's all of the editions are out there. You don't want to format based on the 5th edition or the 6th edition because things change. That's why they do new editions. So always put APA 7th edition. You can learn how to format YouTube videos and textbooks and research articles that way. There is a guide that the university has put together. It's in the student success section on APA. It's okay. I've read through it, and I mean it's a good start. Um, but anyway, so all of your references and citations must be formatted based on APA. And again, some of you know how to do that, and that's perfectly fine. Most of you may not, this being a 200 level course, but so this is a time where you can learn that, and then you can take that skill into 300 and 400 level in graduate school. Okay, so that's that on discussion posts. And remember that you need to do 2 posts. You need to respond to 2 colleagues on each of 3 different days through the week for a total of 6 responses, and that's how you get your full 20 participation points. If you're taking 205 lecture, you got to do the same thing. It's 6 posts throughout the course of the week. It's the same on both ends. And if you're taking other classes that I don't know what it is for A&P or chemistry or whatever, but you have those discussions to do as well. It's a lot of work. These abbreviated classes are a lot of work, and so that's why I admire you all for taking these classes, and especially if you're taking more than just micro lecture and lab. So anyway, if you have any questions on that along the way, just certainly let me know. I make comments and suggestions along the way as you post things. You did a good job on this post. I enjoyed reading your response. It was substantive and yada yada. And then sometimes I build on things that you say to continue the discussion. So I'm active in discussion as we go through the term. So, but I do read everything. So, and by the way, I realize that on some of these it says that make sure that you reference anywhere that you got information. Make sure you reference that, including Halo and AI. We do not use Halo AI. That's good for doing a search and helping to focus your research, for instance. But but that is not an authoritative reference. It is not a AI, Halo, um, Chat GPT, Quillbot. None of those are authoritative references for academic writing, nor is Wikipedia. So all of those things you do not want to use in your um, post or in your responses. You do not want to reference. I don't care. I know even in APA, it tells you how to reference Wikipedia and how to reference AI, but those are not authoritative references for academic writing. So do not use those. And if you do, I'll point that out to you. But anyway, so if you have any questions on discussions or how to go about that, just let me know. I will make comments on your posts and on your responses as we go through. Um, and that's that. So let me know what's going on. Oh, um, I'll mention something about the lab kit in a different time.